Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the story.
The emergency klaxon wailed with its three-tone alarm cutting through the embassy station night cycle. Ambassador Leon Kovac was moving before consciousness fully returned, muscle memory guiding his hands to the emergency breather secured beneath his bunk. "Warning, hull breach in diplomatic sector B," announced the station AI with inappropriate calm. "Explosive decompression imminent, survival probability declining." Kovac did not waste breath swearing. The Arcturian delegation with 17 representatives from across the Galactic arm were housed in Sector B. The first tremor hit as he reached the corridor. The station groaned as metal bent under impossible stress. Emergency lights pulsed crimson, transforming the curved passageway into a throbbing artery. "Report!" Kovac barked into his comm. Only static answered. The second tremor knocked him sideways. This was no ordinary system failure. He had felt this specific vibration pattern once before during the Centauri collapse. Something fundamental was wrong with space itself. The observation deck reinforced doors were locked in emergency mode. Kovac overrode them with his ambassador clearance, heard the hydraulic hiss of the seal breaking. The vast, transparent viewport revealed hell. Beyond the station, impossibly massive, hung a Titan world ship, the construct fully 1/8 of Earth.
Moon in size was disintegrating in silent agony, not exploding, not burning.
Simply unmaking itself, shedding layers of million-year-old superstructure like ash in solar wind. As Kovac watched, frozen, the diplomatic wing across from the observation deck tore away, ripped from the station by forces he could not comprehend. Through the newly formed gap, he glimpsed Arcturian delegates tumbling into vacuum. His emergency comm crackled. "Ambassador, we have lost contact with Central Command. What is happening?" Kovac could not tear his eyes from the dissolving Titan.
"Vessel. Record everything," he ordered. Voice steady despite the tremors now running continuously through the deck beneath his feet.
"Broadcast on all emergency channels. Authentication code Kovac Epsilon 917. The station lurched again. A support beam crashed down 3 meters to his right. Kovac drew a deep breath. "This is Earth Ambassador Leon Kovac at Arcturian Embassy, Station Delta. We are witnessing the unexplained destruction of Titan vessel designation Eternal Beneficence."
"I say again, a Titan world ship is disintegrating without apparent cause." Through the viewport, he watched the world ship's central sphere collapse inward. Reality itself seemed to bend around the point of collapse, stars in the background visibly.
Shifting position, the station AI voice returned, now distinctly strained. "Structural integrity compromised. Complete station collapse in 2 minutes." Kovac continued his transmission as evacuation pods launched behind him, bright pinpricks against the darkness. "The failure appears to be spreading to the station. We are evacuating, but casualties are confirmed. Whatever is happening, it is unlike anything in recorded history. The Titans are falling, and we have no idea why." The dying world ship emitted a pulse of blue-white energy. The observation viewport crystallized, fractures spreading impossibly fast across its surface. "This will be my final transmission," Kovac said, backing toward the escape pod bay as the transparent material began to implode. "May whoever receives this have better answers than I do." The viewport shattered. Commander Ethan Blackwood stood frozen before the monitor, watching his sister die for the 100th time. "Ethan, Listen to me. Dr. Eliza Blackwood's voice crackled with static, her face partially obscured by interference patterns. The anomaly is not what the Morrigan Council claims. It is not destruction, but transformation. We are changing, all of us exposed to it. The research vessel Galileo observation deck was visible behind her, stars warping through what should have been normal space. Alarms wailed in the background. Something is here with us now. Her eyes widened, looking at something off-screen. I can see them properly now. They are beautiful and terrible, Ethan. The Titans knew this was coming. They knew, and they tried to stop it instead of... The feed distorted violently. For just a second, a towering figure appeared behind Eliza, its body composed of constantly shifting matter, eyes like captured stars. Then the transmission dissolved into static. Blackwood slammed his fist against the console, the familiar mixture of grief and rage burning through him. 6 months of bureaucratic stonewalling since the Galileo disappeared. 6 months watching the Morrigan Council declaring retreat while refusing to explain what humanity was retreating from. 6 months of nightmares where Eliza called to him from the anomaly edge. "Commander, they are waiting for you in the briefing room." He turned to find Lieutenant Sato in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. She had tactfully ignored his momentary loss of control. "Thank you, Lieutenant." Blackwood composed himself, straightening his uniform. "Has Dr. Kuznetsov arrived?" "Yes, sir, along with the Drakari captain and the Faden science team." The briefing room hushed as he entered. Around the central holographic display stood the mission's senior staff. Captain Krell of the Drakari, his scaled form towering over the humans, reptilian eyes tracking every movement. The crystalline Faden scientist Meridian, body glowing with internal light patterns that shifted with mood and thought. Unity, the Vex engineer, whose multifaceted eyes reflected the collective consciousness housed within their singular body, and Dr. Nadia Kuznetsov, Earth foremost xenobiologist and the galaxy-leading expert on Titan physiology. Her dark eyes met. Blackwood, briefly before looking away, professional detachment masking what might have been concern. "Thank you all for coming," Blackwood began, activating the holographic display. "In 6 hours, we launch humanity, first mission to the anomaly. Boundary. Our objective is simple in concept, but likely extremely difficult in execution. We will approach the anomaly, gather all possible data on its nature and effects, and determine if there exists any way to slow or stop its expansion." The hologram displayed their planned route, cutting through sectors already abandoned under Morrigan Council evacuation orders. The anomaly itself appeared as a distortion at the galaxy core, spreading outward like a growing storm. Current projections indicate the anomaly will reach Earth within 14 months. The Morrigan Council retreat strategy merely delays the
inevitable. He looked around the table. We represent the only known attempt to understand rather than simply flee.
"The final hunt," rumbled Captain Krell. The Drakari cultural concept of glorious last stands evident in his tone. "My warriors hunger for this battle, even if the enemy has no form we recognize." "Pattern analysis incomplete with current data," intoned Meridian, the Faden voice creating harmonics that vibrated the air. "Probability calculations require direct observation parameters. Our collective anticipates unprecedented data-gathering opportunities," added Unity, the Vex multiple voice, speaking in perfect synchronization. "Success probability calculations remain inconclusive without additional variables." Dr. Kuznetsov spoke last, her voice steady. "Based on refugee medical data and the final Galileo transmissions, we have reason to believe the anomaly affects biological organisms in unexpected ways. possibly triggering rapid evolutionary changes rather than simply destroying life forms. Evolution? Captain Krell hissed, with what might have been disdain. The Drakari achieved physical perfection through 10,000 generations of selective combat. We do not evolve, we perfect. With respect, Captain, Kuznetsov replied, evolution is not optional for living organisms. It is how life responds to changing environments. If fundamental cosmic constants are shifting, biological adaptation must follow. The Doctor theory aligns with certain classified reports, Blackwood interjected. Refugees exposed to the anomaly boundary have exhibited unusual abilities and physiological changes. Most concerning, the survival rate for these transformations appears to be approximately 40%. A solemn silence fell over the group as the implications became clear. Our mission carries extreme personal risk, Blackwood continued. The closer we get to the anomaly, the more likely we all experience these transformative effects. Some of us will not survive the process. Death comes to all warriors eventually, Krell stated. Only its manner remains in question. Fascinating research opportunity regardless of mortality risk factors, Meridian added, the crystalline body pulsing with what might have been excitement. Calculate acceptable risk threshold given extinction alternative, Unity concluded practically. Nadia said nothing, but Blackwood noted the slight tension in her shoulders. She had seen the detailed medical reports, the gruesome failures when transformation went wrong. The Vanguard has been retrofit with technology from all our species, Blackwood continued. Drakari shield systems, Phaedon sensor arrays, Vex engine, modifications. We have done everything possible to prepare for conditions that defy standard physics. He met each of their gazes in turn. We launch in 6 hours. Once we pass the quarantine boundary established by the Morrigan Council, we will be on our own. No support, no rescue. We either succeed or we join the list of missing vessels. Sir, Lieutenant Sato interrupted, hand pressed to her earpiece. We have a situation. Archon vessels have entered Earth orbit. They are demanding immediate cessation of launch preparations. The Council enforcers, Krell growled. They come to prevent our hunt, Blackwood showed no surprise. Right on schedule. Admiral Warren will handle the diplomatic posturing. Our departure window has been adjusted accordingly. He turned to the EST mission team. Report to your stations and complete all preparations. We launch in 3 hours, not 6. The Vanguard slipped from Earth orbit under cover of a carefully orchestrated emergency response drill, the Archon vessels momentarily distracted by a cascading failure in lunar defense grid protocols. By the time the Council enforcers realized they had been deceived, humanity's last hope was already accelerating toward the stars, carrying with it representatives of the only species brave or desperate enough to seek understanding rather than retreat. For 10 days they traveled through increasingly distorted space, sensors recording the subtle warping of reality as they approached the anomaly boundary. And as they traveled, they began to change. The medical bay hummed with activity as Dr. Kuznetsov studied the latest transformation data. 17% of the crew now showed measurable alterations in neural patterns and cellular structures. The Phaedon scientists had been the first affected, their crystalline bodies developing the ability to absorb and channel energies that should have been lethal. The Vex engineer Unity had fragmented into multiple consciousness nodes that maintained communication while developing distinct personalities. The Drakari warriors found their already formidable bodies enhanced in ways that defied conventional biology. Among the humans, the changes varied widely. Lieutenant Sato could now process multiple information streams simultaneously, effectively, multitasking at superhuman levels. The navigation officer began perceiving quantum states directly, allowing her to plot courses through increasingly unstable space-time with uncanny precision. 6 new cases since yesterday, Nadia reported, finding Commander Blackwood in the observation lounge. The transformation rate is accelerating as we get closer to the boundary. He turned from the viewport where he had been studying the increasingly strange starscape. Casualties? 3 so far. A Drakari warrior whose nervous system restructured
Too rapidly. A human engineer whose cardiovascular adaptations failed. A Vex node carrier whose consciousness fragmented beyond cohesion. Blackwood absorbed this grimly. And you, Doctor? Any symptoms yet?
She hesitated, then nodded. Enhanced pattern recognition. Cognitive processing at rates I would have considered impossible before. I can see connections between biological systems that were always hidden to me. And you find that frightening?
Or exhilarating? Both, she admitted. But I am a scientist. Curiosity tends to overcome fear. And me? He asked quietly. Your scans must have shown something. Nadia studied him, noting the subtle shimmer beginning to manifest in his eyes.
Like distant starlight captured within human irises. Your prefrontal cortex shows unprecedented activity patterns. Based on your reported dreams, I suspect precognitive capabilities developing. Not dreams. Visions, he corrected. I see possibilities branching out from each decision point. Most
end in our destruction, but there is one path, narrow and uncertain, that leads to something else, something new.
The human brain was never designed to perceive probability timelines, Nadia said cautiously. Be careful not to lose yourself in possibilities rather than actualities. Before he could respond, the ship intercom activated. Bridge to Commander. Blackwood, we are detecting a massive energy signature ahead. Preliminary analysis suggests artificial construction of Titan origin. When they reached the bridge minutes later, the main view screen showed what could only be described as a tear, in reality itself. A massive structure hung in the void, unlike any technology previously encountered. It appeared to be drawing energy from the surrounding space, creating a vortex of distorted physics that twisted light into impossible patterns. The reality anchor, Nadia breathed, recognizing it from refugee accounts and her own, transformed.
Understanding. Magnification factor 20, Blackwood ordered, and the image expanded to reveal more detail. The anchor resembled a vast spherical web of interconnected nodes, each pulsing with energy that defied spectral analysis.
At regular intervals around its perimeter, smaller Titan vessels maintained position, apparently feeding power into the central structure. 7 Guardian vessels detected, Lieutenant Sato reported, her voice now carrying harmonic overtones, impossible for normal human physiology, each approximately 4 times our mass. They have not detected us yet, added Captain Krell from Tactical, his scaled hide now laced with luminescent patterns that shifted with his movements. Our approach vector keeps us within a sensor shadow created by the anchor energy emissions. Wadia studied the readings carefully, her transformed perception allowing her to interpret data that would have been incomprehensible weeks earlier. The anchor is harvesting energy from multiple dimensions, as refugee reports suggested. The Titans are attempting to stabilize current cosmic constants by reinforcing them with external energy. But the effort is failing, added Meridian. The Faden scientist, now barely recognizable, its crystalline form evolved into a lattice of pure energy manipulation capability. The harvested power bleeds back into space, actually accelerating the transition rather than containing it. So they make the very thing they fear worse by fighting against it, Blackwood said quietly. Their resistance fuels the fire. Nadia nodded. The Titans achieved what they considered biological perfection millions of years ago. They eliminated random mutation, variability, the capacity to adapt. When faced with a changing cosmos, they can only resist or perish. While we adapt, Blackwood finished the thought, even now becoming something new that might survive what comes next. He studied the anchor for a long moment, his transformed perception showing him potential futures branching from each choice. Finally, he spoke with quiet certainty. We cannot stop the transition, but we might be able to guide it, make it less destructive. The anchor is not the problem. How the Titans are using it is the problem. You propose reconfiguring it? Nadia asked, immediately understanding his intention. Yes. Instead of fighting the inevitable, we help it happen in a way that gives life a chance to adapt. He turned to address the bridge crew. We need a strike team to infiltrate the anchor and reach its control center. Dr. Kuznetsov will lead. The scientific component. Captain Krell, I need your best warriors for security. This is a volunteer mission only, Blackwood emphasized. The risks are extreme, even by our current standards. I will lead my warriors personally, Krell declared without hesitation. The final hunt calls for nothing less. The Phaeton will provide energy manipulation expertise, Meridian added. Our transformed capabilities are ideally suited to the environment within the anchor. 3 Vex nodes will accompany the team, Unity offered, their multiple voice echoing slightly. Our computational abilities will be necessary for system reconfiguration. Nadia met Blackwood's gaze. And you, Commander? Will you lead the strike? Team? No, he replied, surprising many. My place is here. The Vanguard will need to extract your team quickly once the Titans realize what we are doing. My abilities seem more useful for command decisions than field operations. Within an hour, the strike team assembled in the shuttle bay. Their transformations were now clearly visible, each species evolving along different paths, but all becoming something beyond their original limitations. The Drakari warriors generated energy fields around their bodies that warped local physics. The Phaedon scientists had become living conduits for transition energies. The Vex nodes floated freely, having abandoned their physical carriers for pure information states. Remember, Nadia addressed the team as they prepared to board. Our primary objective is to reach the control node and reconfigure the anchor. Combat is to be avoided, if possible. Blackwood arrived to see them off, his eyes now visibly containing that shimmer of captured starlight. The fate of all life in our galaxy depends on what you accomplish today. Not stopping the transition, but ensuring life continues beyond it. We will find a way, Nadia promised. The shuttle slipped from the Vanguard silently, its modified shields mimicking the surrounding energy patterns to mask their approach. As they neared the reality anchor, its immense scale became overwhelming. What had appeared as a spherical structure from a distance revealed itself as an impossibly complex latticework of energy conduits and dimensional gateways. Inside the anchor, the strike team moved through corridors that defied conventional geometry. Surfaces curved in directions that should not exist, joining at angles that caused visual distortion even to their transformed perceptions. Energy flowed around and through the structure, carrying information and power in patterns resembling neural networks. This way, Nadia directed, her enhanced pattern recognition allowing her to interpret the flow of energy as a map. The control node is approximately 500 meters through this passage. The Drakari warriors took point, their transformed senses alert for any threat. The Phaedon scientists followed, their bodies pulsing with absorbed energy. The Vex nodes floated at various heights, scanning continuously for defensive systems. Titan biosignatures detected, one of the Vex fragments announced. Multiple entities approaching from adjacent chambers.
Combat imminent, Captain Krell growled, his warriors forming a defensive perimeter. At last, we face the fading gods themselves. The first Titan appeared at the corridor end, its form shifting continuously between states of matter that should
have been mutually exclusive. Where others had maintained humanoid appearance, these beings had abandoned such pretense, their bodies manifestations of cosmic power barely contained within perceivable dimensions. Primitive biological entities, the Titan intoned, voice resonating at frequencies that caused physical pain. Your presence here violates fundamental protocols. Your interference is unacceptable. Energy lashed out from the Titan form, striking one of the Drakari warriors directly. Instead of destroying him, the energy was partially absorbed into his transformed body, causing his luminescent patterns to flare brilliantly. "We have adapted," the warrior snarled, returning fire with his modified weapon. The combined energy blast struck the Titan, causing visible disruption to its already unstable form. "Impossible," the Titan declared, its voice containing what might have been uncertainty. "Lower species cannot withstand transition energies." "And yet here we stand," Krell roared, leading his warriors in a coordinated attack that drove the Titan back from their path. Nadia seized the opportunity, racing forward with the scientific team toward the control chamber. "Now, while they are distracted, we must reach the node." They pushed deeper into the anchor as combat erupted behind them. The transformed strike team moved with purpose, each member using their new abilities to navigate the increasingly chaotic environment. Reality itself seemed fluid here, matter and energy blending in ways that defied convention. When they reached the control node, Nadia understood immediately what they were seeing. The central chamber contained a swirling vortex of pure dimensional energy channeled through crystalline structures that pulsed with the effort of containing forces never meant to be contained. "The Titans are trying to freeze reality," she realized, her transformed mind comprehending the anchor purpose. "They are harvesting energy from multiple dimensions to reinforce current cosmic constants." "Failing effort," observed Meridian, "now almost pure energy." "Resistance accelerates transition process, counterproductive methodology." "We need to reconfigure the energy distribution," Nadia directed. "Instead of fighting the transition, we guide it." The Vex nodes can interface with the control systems. The floating Vex fragments approached the alien technology, establishing connections that allowed them to interpret the incomprehensible symbols and functions. "System architecture identified," they reported. "Primary control functions accessible. Current configuration, directing harvested energy into dimensional stabilization efforts." As they worked to alter the anchor programming, the sounds of battle grew closer. The Titan Guardians had realized the threat to their precious anchor and were converging on the control chamber. "Hurry," Nadia urged. "We do not have much time." "Reconfiguration at 60% completion," the Vex nodes reported. "System resistance
increasing. The first Titan Guardian reached the chamber entrance, its form now fully combat-oriented, with multiple energy manipulation appendages extending from its core. Captain Krell and his remaining warriors formed a defensive line, their
transformed bodies channeling transition energy in ways that actually damaged the Titan. "You do not understand what you interfere with," the Titan declared. "The anchor prevents total cosmic reset. Without stabilization, all reality reverts to primordial chaos." "You are wrong," Nadia responded, her transformed mind perceiving the truth with perfect clarity. "The transition is not destruction, it is evolution. By fighting it, you have made it more violent, more catastrophic. Our civilization achieved perfection 9 million years ago," the Titan insisted. "Evolution is irrelevant to perfect beings." "And that is why you are dying," Nadia countered. Perfection is stagnation. Only adaptation ensures survival. Another violent tremor shook the chamber as the anchor began to destabilize. The Vex nodes worked frantically to complete their reconfiguration, redirecting the massive energies being harvested. New approach, Nadia decided, seeing that time was running out. We cannot reconfigure gradually. We need to initiate a targeted cascade failure that redirects all energies simultaneously. Massive risk coefficient, warned the Vex. Uncontrolled, release could destroy everything within light years. Not if we direct it properly, Nadia insisted. Channel all energy into specific dimensional boundaries. We can smooth the transition wave rather than fighting it. As the Vex implemented her instructions, Captain Krell and his warriors fought a desperate battle against multiple Titan Guardians, now converging on the chamber. One by one, the transformed Drakari fell, buying time with their lives. Cascade.
"Sequence prepared," announced the Vex. "Energy redirection programmed. Activation imminent."
The remaining Titans seemed to realize what they intended. "No," it declared, its voice shaking the chamber. "You will doom all existence. The transition must be contained." "The transition must be guided," Nadia corrected. "Life adapts or perishes. Even your kind must eventually face that truth." She gave the final command, and the Vex activated the cascade. The control interface locked down immediately, emergency containment protocols activating. But it was too late. The process had begun. The central energy vortex flared blindingly bright as reality itself bucked under the strain of controlled dimensional collapse. The entire anchor structure began to shake apart, energy conduits rupturing as the carefully balanced system collapsed. "Strike team, fall back to extraction point," Nadia ordered. "We have minutes before total anchor failure." They retreated toward their entry point, Captain Krell and his last warrior providing cover against the increasingly desperate attacks of the surviving Titans. As they ran, the structure around them began to disintegrate, reality itself warping, as new physical laws began to manifest. When they reached the shuttle bay, they found their vessel destroyed in the structural collapse. "Alternative extraction required," Meridian observed with typical Phaedon calm despite the crisis. Nadia activated
her emergency communicator.
"Strike team to Vanguard. Primary extraction failed. Requesting immediate alternative. Anchor, critical failure in progress." "Acknowledged," came Blackwood's immediate response, distorted by interference. "Vanguard moving to secondary extraction. Point. Prepare for direct pickup. Be advised, Guardian vessels have engaged us. Combat in progress." Through the open bay doors, they could see the Vanguard approaching through a storm of energy weapons fire. 3 Titan Guardian vessels pursued, their attacks becoming increasingly desperate as the anchor began to fail. "We need to reach that ship," Nadia said, assessing the impossible gap between them and safety. "We will create the path," declared Meridian. The Phaedon scientist communicated briefly with its transformed colleague, their crystalline forms now resonating at identical frequencies. "Energy bridge, temporary transit field to cross vacuum, but our power reserves will be completely expended." "Do it," Nadia ordered. "Everyone prepare for immediate transit once the bridge forms." The Phaedon scientists moved to the bay edge, their transformed bodies now glowing so brightly they could barely be looked at directly. With a harmonic tone that shook the remaining structure around them, they projected a shimmering pathway of controlled energy that stretched toward the approaching Vanguard. "Now," Nadia commanded. "Cross quickly. The field will not hold long." Captain Krell and his last warrior went first, then the remaining human team members. The Vex nodes floated across effortlessly, their information state barely acknowledging The physical transition, Nadia turned to the Phaidon scientists who remained focused on maintaining the energy bridge. "Your reserves?" she asked urgently. "Failing," Meridian acknowledged, voice strained. "We cannot maintain the bridge and transit ourselves. You must go, Doctor. Our data is already transmitted to your neural patterns. Nothing will be lost." "I will not leave you behind." "Not left behind, evolved beyond," Meridian corrected. "The transition comes for all. We merely accelerate our process." With the anchor collapsing around them and the energy bridge beginning to flicker, Nadia had no choice. With a final grateful nod to the Phaidon scientists, she ran across the shimmering pathway toward the vanguard. Behind her, the Phaidon forms flared one final time, their crystalline structures dissolving into pure energy that fed the bridge long enough for her to reach safety. As she leapt the final distance into the Vanguard open cargo bay, the energy bridge collapsed, and the reality
Anchor began its final implosion. "All surviving strike team members aboard," she reported breathlessly into her communicator.
"The Phaidon scientists are gone." "Acknowledged," came Blackwood, tense reply. "Brace for emergency maneuvers. We are still under attack." The ship lurched violently as it executed a tight turn away from the disintegrating anchor. On the external monitors, Nadia could see the Guardian vessels still pursuing, though their attacks had become less coordinated as the anchor failure progressed. And then the final cascade began. The reality anchor core imploded, collapsing into itself before releasing its stored dimensional energy in the precise pattern Nadia had programmed. The resulting wave expanded outward at light speed, but instead of destroying everything in its path, it transformed it. The wave overtook the Guardian vessels first. Rather than being destroyed, they simply ceased to exist in their current form, matter and energy reconfiguring according to new universal parameters. "Maximum speed," Blackwood ordered as the wave approached the Vanguard. "Brace for transition impact." The dimensional wave overtook them moments later. Throughout the ship, crew members experienced the transition in ways unique to their transformed states. For Nadia, it was like having her consciousness expanded to encompass multiple realities simultaneously, then compressed back into a single perspective that somehow retained aspects of the broader view. When the effect passed, the Vanguard continued its flight, damaged but intact. Behind them, where the reality anchor had stood, a new phenomenon had formed. Not destruction, but transformation. A nexus point where multiple dimensional states overlapped, creating a region of space where new physical laws were being born. On the bridge, Commander Blackwood stood before the main view screen, studying the sensor readings with eyes that now unmistakably contained the same starlight that had characterized Titan gaze. "You did it," he said as Nadia entered. "The anchor has been neutralized, but in a way none of us could have predicted." "Not neutralized," she corrected, "repurposed. The energy it harvested has been redirected to smooth the transition rather than fight it. And the result? The transition continues, but at a manageable rate. Instead of catastrophic collapse followed by chaotic reformation, we are seeing ordered evolution of fundamental constants. Will it still spread to the entire galaxy? Eventually, yes. But now the process will take centuries rather than months. And more importantly, it will advance gradually enough that life can adapt, Blackwood nodded slowly. So we have given the Baisaw galaxy time. Time and hope, Nadia agreed. The transition is not the end of existence, merely the end of existence as we have known it. Life will continue, but in forms adapted to new cosmic parameters. Like us, Blackwood said, gesturing to his own visibly transformed appearance. Yes, we are the forerunners of what comes next, the first to adapt, rather than resist. Lieutenant Sato turned from her communication station. "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from multiple species throughout the galaxy. News of the anchor. Destruction is spreading rapidly." "Not destruction," Blackwood corrected. "Transformation. Make that distinction clear in all our communications. Set course for Earth. We have a great deal to report." As the Vanguard turned toward home, Nadia contemplated the enormity of what they had accomplished. The reality everyone had known would still pass away, but in its place would come something new, something that might be better in ways they could barely imagine. And humanity, the youngest and supposedly least advanced spacefaring species, had been the ones to ensure this future. Not through superior technology or power, but through their fundamental willingness to change, to adapt, to become something new when circumstances demanded it. The ashes of Titans would become the foundation for whatever came next. 3 months after the Vanguard returned to Earth, Nadia stood on the observation deck of the new Transition Research Center. The facility represented humanity's first attempt to systematically study and prepare for the approaching dimensional wave. Blackwood joined her at the viewport, his transformation now unmistakable, eyes containing that distinctive starlight that marked all who had been deeply changed. "The Morrigan Council is making noise again," he said without preamble, "demanding we share all data regarding managed transformations." After they condemned our mission and tried to stop us? Their hypocrisy is remarkable. "They are frightened," Blackwood observed. "The transition approaches their territories now. Reports indicate widespread panic. And our response? That all data is freely available to any species willing to establish their own research centers and contribute to the collective knowledge base." Below them, Earth continued its slow rotation, its appearance unchanged despite the knowledge that fundamental reality would eventually transform everything. Refugee ships still crowded its orbit, but now they came seeking knowledge rather than merely escape. "I received the latest reports from the transformation research teams," Nadia said. "The patterns are becoming clearer. Each species adapts differently, but the transformations are not random. They follow evolutionary paths unique to each biological template. And the casualty rates? Dropping significantly as we develop better protocols. Among humans, successful transformation now exceeds 80% when properly managed." Blackwood nodded, satisfied. "I have been thinking about what we learned regarding the Titan failure to adapt." "Their perfect stagnation," Nadia recalled. "Yes. They achieved a form they considered ideal and then stopped changing. For millions of years, they remained exactly the same, while the universe continued its evolution around them." He turned to face her directly. "We must not make the same mistake." "I agree, but I do not think humanity is in danger of stagnation. If our history proves anything, it is our constant drive to change, to improve, to become something different than we were before. Perhaps that is our greatest strength," Blackwood mused. "Not our technology or our intellect, but our fundamental discontent with remaining the same." "Our restlessness saved the galaxy," Nadia agreed. "While ancient species fled or tried to halt the inevitable, we alone chose to face it, to understand it, to work with it rather than against it." Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, unaware that it had become the center of a new galactic order. Not because of conquest or superior technology, but because when faced with cosmic change, humanity had chosen adaptation over retreat. The Titan Age had ended. Whatever came next would be shaped by those willing to evolve. From the ashes of gods, new life would emerge.